Welcome to Skin and Soul. I'm Gwenm Carsley, a transformational body, sex, and soul coach, and I'm inviting you on a bold, unfiltered journey into the heart of our humanity through the lens of Eros. This is where we strip away the shame, dive into the unspoken, and embrace the wild, raw truth of our desires. Together, we'll crack open the taboo, uncover our deepest intimacies, and awaken the pulse of our sexual essence. Because real transformation, it's messy, it's thrilling, and it's oh so delicious. Buckle up, loves. Skin and Soul Beyond the Pale starts in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Hello and welcome. I'm Gwenm and I am the host of Skin and Soul on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm also a transformational body, sex, and soul coach and the creator of Louvology. And this is the first episode, so welcome. And we're going to talk about each week around sexuality, our eros, and what it means to be profoundly human. And we're going to get gritty, and it's going to be ugly, messy, delicious, and all of it. And we're going to talk about the things that we don't normally get to say out loud in our lives, things that we don't even necessarily share within ourselves. So this is that exploration. Today, you get me. Sometimes I will have a guest. And I wanted to start this first episode on the midlife awakening / crisis. And I've called this Ashakenings because this midlife event usually comes on like some disruptive event. It shakes us to our core. So I'm going to start by asking you, where you have been hiding, what you have suppressed, what dreams you have forgotten, what you don't talk about in your life, and how you've just gone along in your life. And even if things are great, what is being hidden below the surface? So something around midlife, which is something that we generally can't ignore, is that we get to this place where we've dug the trench and we find ourselves standing in the middle of this crossroads. And out there, we realize that life is shorter than we had before. So we have what's behind us, and all of a sudden our mortality becomes really, really evident. I know for me, and this is going to be around my story, but I'm going to invite you to bring in your own experiences, is that I had no desire to disrupt my life. I had a good wife. I had a good life. We had definitely our struggles along the way. We were not an easy couple in the sense that we had been going to therapy since pretty much day one. We wanted very different things out of life. We had very different flavors going on. And for me, I had stepped into this life, and I think as I was going along, knowing I had a good wife and a good life, and just really appreciative of it from where I had come from. And, that will come up as we go along. But I realized I was slowly feeling these rumblings, and I was ignoring them. And I was just going along and feeling like something was off, and struggling, needing more, wanting more, but not really knowing where to look. And I could feel my desires being pushed down. And there were many things in my own relationship that I felt I couldn't talk about. So, for one thing, being in a lesbian couple, and it wasn't my traditional, I'd been with men for most of my life. And so being in this community, I did feel the pressures around my own desires around wanting penetration. And my wife was she was older than I was, and was definitely more conservative. And I was, pushing things down. And so much so that I realized, oh God, I'm just remembering this, that I had a box of sex toys that I would keep hidden in the back because I knew it was something that wouldn't be acceptable. And I found that when I looked around in my daily life, that internally, I didn't have those mirrors that were really reflecting the core parts of me, the parts of me that I wanted to shine out in the world, and the parts of me that I think that my wife had fallen in love with originally, but were slowly being cast aside or masked. And around my early 40s, I got this gift, this early inheritance, and I knew that I wanted to buy a property. So we both wanted sunshine. I wanted sunshine, and I was really looking for a haven. I even knew at that time that I wanted a haven in a place where I could just be with myself. And my wife had been going down to Palm Springs for a really long time. She was a golfer, and I was the anti-golfer, so I didn't really want to go. But I mean, I tell you, as soon as I landed, and it was my birthday weekend, I just, my whole chest, everything in me opened up. I think there's like these there's cracked quartz in these mountains, and this is where I am today, right now. But I knew in that moment that I was going to leave there with a house no matter what. And while I was there, I also met someone, and he is still very dear and someone who I love incredibly in my life, and he's very sacred to me. But that would be, going there or coming here and meeting him was the crack that I couldn't ignore. And I had been in therapy long enough to know that falling for someone else was never the answer, and it's all within. And what was I lacking and missing? And that was all fun and dandy. But I also remember saying to my therapist at the time was, I can see the train coming, but I just can't stop it. And I could feel the rumbling, and I knew fundamentally that I didn't want to disrupt the marriage. I didn't know how to contain what was going on. So I had bought this place in May of 2018, and as the year went on, I was more and more creative. So my sexual energy was exploding, and I started to write. I was dancing, I was singing, but I was doing it all behind closed doors. It was like I wanted to just drink in everything that I possibly could. And that all of a sudden, all of the things that I hadn't allowed myself to feel were starting to erupt, which was at the inconvenience, of my marriage, because all of a sudden I found myself having secrets that were conscious, that I found myself very consciously, again, looking around me, amongst our mutual friends, where I just didn't recognize anyone, and I didn't recognize myself in the life. And what ended up happening is somewhere around, from May to the end of December, and having this intense release of writing, of creativity and the surgence, and starting to discover myself and having my own voice, and finding out that I wanted to go and explore the world. And I just felt really suppressed inside the marriage, and that when I did bring things up, and I'm not at no fault of my wife by any means, that there were hard conversations that we both didn't want to talk about. I felt incredibly shameful around my desires and wanting penetration, for instance, and just wanting to live in ways that was not within our relationship container, which meant like just the way we traveled. I like to get up and go, and my wife was like the 2-year ahead planner, and that infiltrated every part of our life. So as we got to, and I'm just gonna go there, it's like January of 2019, I had announced that I wanted an affair. She had been saying to me, and could feel it, I could feel her insecurity. I could feel her questioning. I could feel her probing. And she would say things like, I'm just so happy with our life. Our life is perfect. And I wouldn't know what to do if it wasn't, or if you left. And I could feel the pressure building. And this doesn't come said easy, but definitely I was drinking more and more just to not feel, just to go to sleep at night. Just to be able to cope going into the next day. And that night we had been both out, and she again had brought up this, the fact that she wanted, that she was so happy in our life. And I just, blurted it out. I want an affair, which is not a sentence I ever recommend putting out there. But what it did do, and it was an awful night, is it opened us up again to something very real. We opened up into an intimacy that I think both of us had been craving for a really long time. And as awful as the experience was of making that declaration, it was also fundamentally freeing. I felt alive in my skin. I felt honest. It was good to be seen. And it went both ways. She got to reveal things about her that I never got to see. And from that point, I could see something within us that brought along the hope, the that things could still work. And I gave myself the year to go through it, and just to see if we could go through this process in a very conscious way, and if I could have incorporate more aliveness, if I could bring in more me, if I could have those conversations, and both of us have those conversations where we could lift us up and grow and support each other into another level, into the next level. Unfortunately, by my birthday and then coming into June, she was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And I just remember the sensation of, again, awful, my throat sinking into my stomach, and not knowing what to do, because all of a sudden, someone I loved very dearly is sick, and I could also feel my future dwindling. I just saw it go away. And, she was very strong. And, they basically said that she had 15, 20 years, and I wanted it for her. It wasn't that, but that I felt this obligation to stay. And in the obligation, I just felt my whole body start to shut down again. My whole being felt just encompassed, and it was hard. So from here, I've just given you a lot of information. I've just kept it rolling pretty quick. I'm just going to invite you to sit into what parts of you feel obligated to, what you don't allow yourself in your life, how you've carved out pieces of yourself in your life to live the way society has asked you to, the way you were brought up to, the way, even just what you impose on yourself, and how you're supposed to live life, and what relationship is supposed to look like, what your path is supposed to look like. And now we are going to take a very quick break. See you soon. And welcome back. You're listening to Skin and Soul on Transformation Talk Radio, and we've just been talking about the midlife crisis awakening. And I was talking a little bit about my story and how I came into my own midlife awakening. That and now we're going to go into for what it looks like to awaken. Because it's all different. So I'm going to share again my experience, but awakenings look different for everyone, no matter how you've managed to go through life, whether you have been self-growthing all along the way, or whether it comes like a big rupture or just the slow rumble. It is an invitation to take a look at where you want to go next. It's this invitation to become anything that you want to become. So stepping into what it feels like, I can tell you it went from a rumbling that I was very much trying to ignore. There were places in my body that had stopped feeling for a really long time. And as I cracked open from both being in this place, which was the desert, which I just love, and as well as meeting this man that I couldn't ignore the presence, I was cracking. I was literally cracking at the seams, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was as though all of that emotion, desire, the parts of me that I had drowned for so long were literally coming through my pores. And as I mentioned earlier, I just started to drink more and more, and even take sleeping pills at night just to get some rest, just to get some sleep. It was inconvenient, especially as my wife went into treatment for being very sick, for having stage 4 cancer. And going through chemo with her and feeling my own horror. There were elements of, there was disgust, honestly, around, and I'm going to say that the chemicals, I was terrified of them. I could feel my own mortality. I felt myself drowning. I was watching somebody that I loved absolutely with everything, that just sick and dying and angry and having no control over her autonomy. And that lasted for maybe several months. And by November, the anger, the resentment that that was there for her own situation, for knowing where I was at, because like it or not, I was still where I was at. By November, we separated of that year. And the idea was that I was going to go off and just live that eat, pray, love kind of experience, that I needed to go find myself and go find what was really important, and just learn to be with myself. And of course, the cosmic joke is that COVID happened. I found myself over an ocean in London with my sister and family, and was there for 8 months, and then ended up coming back to California for another year during that COVID time. And during that time, it was just a massive reflection. So I went from this incredible high, and I should say during this, my awakening that was both excruciating and coming through my body and feeling everything and having this incredible flow of creativity and just a hunger. I was like, a baby discovering chocolate and French fries, and I don't know, I'm pulling out the junk food, but just tasting again for the first time, feeling again for the first time. And in my awakening, I should mention, I was experiencing like crazy orgasms, like constantly. I was waving, the energy was waving through me all the time, uncontrollably. And as amazing as that was, I was hungry to hold on to it, but I was also just needing some relief. And so moving on to the next phase, which was my leaving, I did the opposite. I started to crash, and my body started to shut down. And as I was in classes and doing the things that I love, and just being out, and I ended up moving to Portugal. I ended up having a place in Portugal and trying to find my place. My body still felt it wanted to be touched. It wanted to live. It still wanted to explore, but now the sensations were numbing out. And in 2022, towards the end, my wife ended up passing away. And that brought on a whole new level of grief and desire for life, but exhaustion. Exhaustion to the point where I could barely function. And I was in classes doing my certifications around sexuality, and I could not find my own pleasure. I couldn't find my pleasure practices included, honestly, it was putting my head down on a pillow. It was being able to get into a shower and just feeling the water rain down on me. So the experience of awakening for me was very dramatic. And the way it can look is, it can be dramatic, but no matter what happens, it is a death. It is a disruption, a destruction of whatever was. Even if it means that you're going into the next chapter, moving along and ignoring everything that's going on, what happens then is just more numbing. And I'm going to invite you to think about, as we go on in our life, as we get older, when we look back, we're not looking back at all of the work days that we accomplished, right? We're not looking at superficial things. We're looking at how we lived life, and how we lived life well, and the quality of relationships and connections that we had in our life. So in those moments, I started to realize, well, firstly, I lost everything, which was absolutely normal. My wife had passed away. Everything that I had known to be my family for nearly 20 years was no longer my family. And the friends that I had, in that community were also not in my community anymore. So I had let go of a lot. I'd let go of things. When I tell you, I left with 3 suitcases and 6 boxes, and that was it. And I had learned to live on this basis of just, what is it that I really need? What is it that I really want? It was the first time, though, even being in grief, even going through the motions, just knowing that I could go through them, that I could go through them with my voice, and that I was doing the best that I could with what I had, that I wanted to live life to its fullest. And so there was that tipping point where being so hungry, just needing to go from here to there and everywhere, like truly, I have nomadic feet. And anybody who knows me knows that, my goal in life is to be able to get on a plane and go anywhere if I can. Just to have an experience. I also have started to realize, and coming into the awakening deeply and deepen into it even now, it's to understand what really matters, and that I am looking for this deeper stability and to stay awake, that going out to experience life isn't about running out for something new and shiny. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. That it comes down to the renewal within yourself, that it comes down to really figuring out what is it that turns you on. And we can say that sexually, but really Eros is everywhere. It's how we approach life. It's how we live life. I can tell you, generally how we approach our relationships and how we have sex in bed and all of that is also how we go out into the world and approach life. And we are fed the way society tells us we're supposed to live, the way our parents tell us we're supposed to live, our friends, and even all of those impositions that we put on ourselves. What are the obligations that you've put up as masks? Where are you not giving yourself the permission to feel, to accept a world and an experience and a life that includes pleasure? Now, I was telling you earlier around feeling deep into grief and not feeling anything, but I also understood below this depth of grief that there was also a profound joy. I had known, I knew within me that I was the joy, that I am the joy, I am the freedom. So the disruption and the destruction is a good thing. We want the deaths in our life in order to recreate something new. Whether you're in a relationship and you don't know whether you want to stay in it or you do want to stay in it and make it rich, we can't stay in a relationship as status quo forever, right? It moves. We are creatures that change and move and evolve. And when we don't, that's where things start to go very awry. It's where relationships start to deaden. It's where the routine happens. And where are you in your life? Where are you in your routines? Are you paying attention to those little inklings and those needlings? Where have you cut yourself off in your body? Where has it gone numb? All right, again, loads of info, lots to think about, and we will come right back after this message. Welcome back. And in this next segment, we're going to talk about the difference between the midlife awakening versus the midlife crisis, right? Because there's a choice. And I think a lot of times when we hear the term, well, my wife left me, my job dumped me, and everything is happening to us. And I think that is the crisis, right? When everything is happening to us against our will. The awakening is the invitation into choice. It's the opportunity to become this new version of what you want the next part of your life to look like. And that's not to say that the next part can't have 10 more reincarnations, that you can't continue to grow further and deeper into areas of your life that you want to explore. It means that you don't become the victim of my wife or my husband or my partner left me, that whatever is going on, that whatever was lived before, the grief of all of the things that haven't happened, all the things that were not lived aren't embedded and stay and become places and sources of bitterness, that there's always an opportunity to make the choice. And it doesn't matter how old you are, that the choice is always there to choose something different. So looking around at my life, what is it, 6 years later? I can't count, by the way. 6, 7 years later, after kind of officially starting this journey, I am still single. I am still nomadically tapping around the world and doing my thing. And ultimately, though, I find myself, for the first time, pretty good in my skin, unapologetic about how I want to live life, and open to the gifts of life. I have had, since my wife passed, other people pass away. And it always just reminds me that this is a short ride, whether we live it to 105 or whether we only have 5 days left. We don't know. We don't know ever what is coming, but to appreciate this vessel, whether you believe in God, whether you don't, it doesn't matter, that this experience is your experience. And it's not about being a heinous person or being so selfish that you're trampling on other people's boundaries, etc. It's about this beautiful self-love of selfishness, because this is your experience. And the people around you don't benefit from you playing small. That relationships don't grow until the edges are pushed. We're not forced into something else until the cracks start to leak. This awakening has been a huge gift. And I'm going to tell you that after going numb for probably over 2 years, after my crazy awakening and experiencing, my body is coming into wholeness again. It's coming into this balance, and I'm feeling into the places that don't want to be felt. I'm feeling into the places, which I always say numbness. Numbness is like one of the loudest sensations. Sitting with the places that are numb, sitting where pain exists, sitting and acknowledging that there is joy all the way through it. That even when things are hard, even when things are not going well, that I can trust in myself, that I can trust that this universe, that this journey it's going to be all right, because my eyes are open. So in this invitation to open your eyes and to stay awake, to not get complacent, to not go into the mundane, to not settle. We all have reasons for staying. We all, whether it's fear of stability and making real world practical decisions, but where can you expand? Where can you start to shine your light in places that you're hungering for? The awakening, the Ashakening. What I've realized from, when I mentioned earlier around my therapist, was that I could see the train coming, but I couldn't stop it. And today I know that the train was never going to stop for me, that I could watch it go by, that I could get on, or I could literally let it run me over. I wish today that I knew more then, or that I knew now, that I know, sorry, that you're going to watch my tongue do all kinds of flips. But if I wish I knew then what I knew now, but I'm not sure it would have changed very much. I needed to go through that passage, that all of the things that I'd gone through in my relationship with my wife was this beautiful growth. And like I said, I was very fortunate to have a good relationship. It just wasn't the forever or the right relationship to take me into, well into my 80s and 90s. But that doesn't make it a failure. Neither does all of the past of things that were not done or not lived. That I'm fortunate enough today, as are you, to make the choices to step into more of what you want. And maybe those conversations are really difficult. Like I said, speaking around sexuality and, ironically being in a relationship that felt very safe on many levels, our intimacy wasn't one of them. And I had no idea how much I was hiding from my partner, but also how much I was hiding from myself. And the cost. So what are you willing to give up? Are you aware of the cost of what you're giving up? And I often feel that, we always have to make some form of compromise in life. And there are sacrifices that go along with certain things, certain choices, right? We have children, of course, we can't just go do whatever we want. But at the same time, I believe that we only get so many sacrifices. Nobody gives awards for the greatest sacrifice given. There's nothing around being a sacrificial lamb where, there are celebrations for you at the end of life. There's only the unlived life. And to walk into it consciously. So something that we're going to talk about as we go along in future episodes is something that I call conscious hedonism. And we think of hedonism as something awful, like, oh, that's greed, that's gluttony, that's, too much. And that's why I bring in the term consciousness. How can you bring in the depth of pleasure, the depth of your desires, your core desires? Because of course we have these lovely superficial ones, and there's nothing wrong with having superficial desires. But to go deeper into what do those desires awaken in you? What is the sensation? What is the feeling that those core essences bring you? Like when you have a desire, it's not just, I want to eat cake. It's how it brings life into you. It's how it makes you feel. All right, so we are wrapping it up slowly. We're going to go to our last break. Thank you for bearing with me. This is the first episode, and thank you for joining me. Welcome back. This is Gwenm, and this is the first episode of Skin and Soul. So thank you for joining me today. We're just going to finish up in our last segment, and I wanted to just talk a little bit about the masks that we bring into our lives, how we stock up on them, and how we end up at that crux that no one can avoid. And the masks go on throughout our lives without even noticing it. And part of getting older that I'm really appreciating is taking them off, because God knows it's really good to take them off. It feels lighter. It feels more authentic. It feels that there's no longer this need for permission to just be. But there are many masks that we carry. And these masks are the things that stop us from living the way we want to live. We have this pleasure capacity, which is what I'm going to talk about in our next episode, where we actually have this ceiling of what we allow ourselves to feel, what we allow ourselves to experience. In particular, even though we think we usually have a window of tolerance around the bad stuff, but also that we have this window of tolerance that we stay within around our pleasure and feeling good. That if we feel too good, we're either waiting for the penny to drop or something to happen to make it all go away. That if we feel too much goodness in our life, that there's guilt that shows up. That at the cost of us feeling good, somebody else in our life must pay. And I'm here to tell you again, this is your opportunity to experience life to the capacity that you want to experience it at. This is this beautiful invitation. And I'm actually going to take you in for a moment. I don't know if you're driving, don't do this. But just to take a moment to breathe and to breathe into your body. And notice very consciously the temperature of your breath, to bring it all the way down, right into your lower belly. And as you exhale, feeling the warmth of it. And just feeling that breath for a moment and knowing that this is your aliveness. This breath tells you that you are still here. So as you breathe in, and you can breathe in all the way down to your genitals, feeling the aliveness and noticing what happens when you bring focus, and exhaling out, maybe bringing in some sound again, if you're in public, driving, just take care. But notice that just simply breathing and expanding your breath and awareness into your body, and breathing and taking that breath into your chest and outward, feeling the energy surpass your skin as though you are breathing literally in and out of your skin. Noticing any kind of sensations and feeling how you can let those sensations move through your breath. And maybe your breath is shallow. Where is the block? Where is it in your throat or your chest or right in between your rib cage? Have you gone numb or forgotten about the rest of your body, your legs, your arms, your fingers, even your earlobe? You can breathe into this sensation of that extends beyond the body, beyond your head, and back again. So a simple exercise just in breathing can bring you back into your life force, remind you that breath is life force, and your sexuality, your eros, is your life force. So I'm going to end today with a closing message. I'm going to read it. That awakening rarely comes from grace. It arrives like a storm, or a kiss, or a scream. It arrives when your life can no longer hold your untruths. You may lose people, and you likely will. You may lose roles, and again, you likely will. But you'll gain your breath. You'll remember your skin. You'll stop waiting for permission to want. And if you're waking up even just a little, just enough to feel the hum beneath the surface, don't look away. Let this be your permission to feel what you've buried, to speak what you've never dared to say out loud. And now I'm going to invite you to send in any moon letters. And a moon letter is a desire, a memory, a fantasy, a want, a secret, anything that you're longing to speak out loud. It can be poetry, a letter, whatever it is that you want to express. You can send it in anonymously or not, and I will choose one each week to say out loud as they come in, or it might show up on my website. So that is the invitation. You can send it to on my website. It is gwenmcarsley.com. You'll find it on the podcast page to include those moon letters and submissions. And if you're ever interested in working with me, you can again go to my website, have a quick chat. So thank you again for joining me for this very first episode. A little bit mumbled, but here we are. Not perfect. So here we are. Have a beautiful week. Thank you again for joining me on Skin and Soul, where we have conversations beyond the pale on Transformation Talk Radio. Thank you for listening to Skin and Soul with me, Gwenm. Join me Fridays at 10 a.m. PST on Transformation Talk Radio. Catch the podcast anytime on your favorite platforms. You can follow me on Instagram @Luvology. Ready to take the next step? Book a compatibility call with me at gwenmcarsley.com.